Welcome back to Saving the Republic with Joe State and presented by Grab Your Gear Network, where we speak to people who work hard every single day. If you're a trades worker, if you're a merit shop worker, this show and this channel is for you. Be sure to check out all of our other content on the channel at Grab Your Gear on YouTube. We have a long form podcast with Jack Windsor and Joe. Again, a long form podcast focuses on topics that are going to affect your life. Here on STR, we like to focus on one or two or maybe three stories that really are going to impact your life that the mainstream news is not talking about. Specifically, that's going to affect your life if you're a hardworking American. If you go to work every day and you work with your hands, you put food on the table, you pay your bills. That's what we focus on here. Now, again, I've explained this a couple times on my prior shows, but just if you're just watching us for the first time, my setup is not typical. My camera is not typical. And that is because I am currently overseas and I'm not in my studio that I'm usually in. So bear with us on the technical side. I'm going to see if I can upgrade my camera while I'm over here. But until then, we will still keep bringing you guys the content that matters most. Now, in this video, I want to focus on something that will affect your life if you're a trades worker, something that will affect your life if you're a hardworking person. But really, if you're any American in the country, the new Department of Government Efficiency will affect your life. And this department has been getting a lot of buzz in the news. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will be heading it up at the direction of President Trump. On the campaign trail, we heard many times about the goals of this department, including, of course, Elon Musk has talked extensively about the threat that the U.S. faces when it comes to the national debt and really just the fiscal crisis that we are heading toward. We're racing toward this crisis, guys. It's unbelievable to see the statistics. And matter of fact, the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull up this chart that shows you guys the U.S. national debt. As you can see, our national debt has ballooned. In the past 4 years, we have added nearly $8 trillion to the U.S. debt. When President Trump was in office, he left with about $23 trillion. Joe Biden has added $8 trillion since he left office. And this is a massive problem. And the reason this is a problem that you might be feeling right now is that when we print money, when the United States prints money, it drives us into a massive deficit. When we print money that we don't have, that creates something called inflation, where there is more money chasing the same amount of goods, right? So if you have the same amount of goods in the economy, the GDP, the production has not gone up, what you're going to see is a massive hike in prices. We did see this. We've seen about an overall, on average, 40% hike in inflation. This closely aligns with the M1 money supply graph that was ironically altered after the COVID crisis by the US government to try to make it look better. But in reality, the money supply in this country increased about 40% following COVID due to our spending. And so we've seen cascading effects from this fiscal policy. And if you are watching this show, you have definitely felt it. You felt it at the gas pump. You felt it when you go to try to apply for a loan. You felt it with your credit card payments, but especially in terms of buying a home. If you're somebody who wants to buy a house in America, if you're somebody who wants to raise a family, which I think our audience probably wants to do those things, but simply if you want to be able to afford to go on a vacation, if you want to be able to afford to buy food, heck, if you want to buy a car, I mean, these are all things we need to do as Americans. And this policy has affected you. And so I wanted to talk about DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, because Elon Musk and Vivek are narrowly focusing in and heavily invested in cutting government spending. Elon Musk has tweeted many, many times about the impending crisis of spending. And they have talked about the potential to cut $2 trillion worth of spending out of the budget, which seems like a tall task. But the duo, the dynamic duo, you might call them, wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal today, Elon Musk and Vivek, explaining how they plan to reform the government. And that's what we're going to get into right now. A couple small excerpts from this article that will directly affect you in a major way if this gets underway, if their plans come to fruition. So check some of this out. Elon Musk and Vivek, the DOGE plan to reform government. Following the Supreme Court's guidance, we will reverse a decades-long executive power grab. And I'm going to scroll down here into what Vivek and Elon are describing. But I believe Vivek writes this part here, but could be Elon as well. Conventional wisdom holds that statutory civil service protections stop the president or even his political appointees from firing federal workers. The purpose of these protections is to protect employees from political retaliation. But the statute allows for reductions in force that don't target specific employees. The statute further empowers the president to prescribe rules governing the competitive service. That power is broad. Previous presidents have used it to amend the civil service rules by executive order, and the Supreme Court has held in Franklin versus Massachusetts and Collins versus Yellen that they were not constrained by the Administrative Procedures Act when they did so. With this authority, Mr. Trump can implement any number of rules governing the service that would curtail administrative overgrowth, from large-scale firings, that's the key right there, large-scale firings, to relocation of federal agencies out of the Washington area. Now, let's talk about this for a little bit. What would relocating these agencies out of D.C. really do? A major effect of this policy would be, number one, the cultural impact, right? Washington, D.C. is a 92% Democrat area. This is the jury pool that indicted all of the January 6 prisoners, many who did not commit physical crime, did not commit violence, but 92% of Washington, D.C. residents are Democrats. So inherently, this is going to affect how the agencies are operated. When all of them are located in probably the most Democratic hotspot in the country, the way these agencies are conducting themselves will be affected. They will have a political tilt, as we all know they do. And so simply by moving the agencies, you don't have to fire anybody, and you're going to force people to decide, hey, do I want to go live in Montana or Wyoming to work on natural resources, on EPA, on, an environmental cause, some agency regarding the environment, or do I want to stay in D.C.? They're probably going to stay home in D.C. Secondly, the president does have broad authority, according to Elon and Vivek and their legal expertise, because Vivek is a lawyer, believe it or not. The president does have the ability to fire a large amount of people, which will cut our spending as a government massively. Continuing on in this article. Let's see here. Continuing on. Finally, we are focused on delivering cost savings for taxpayers. Skeptics question how much federal spending DOGE can tame through executive action alone. They point to the 1974 Impoundment Control Act, which stops the president from ceasing expenditures authorized by Congress. Mr. Trump has previously suggested this statute is unconstitutional, and we believe the current Supreme Court would likely side with him. But even without relying on that view, let's just stop right there for a second. So Mr. Trump believes that this statute that would prevent him from stopping spending that Congress authorizes, he believes that's unconstitutional. So what he is effectively saying is that Donald Trump believes he, as a president, can maybe line item veto or prevent spending that Congress authorizes, which would be a massive deal. Now, if I'm being objective here, is that something we really want for the president to be able to do, when somebody else is in power? I don't know. There's definitely some scenarios where this could be not a good thing. But at the same time, this would give a responsible president an immense amount of ability to affect where the dollars are going. And also add a check and balance to Congress, with these massive omnibus bills that we are gearing up to probably witness here soon in the current legislature federally, are these massive spending bills that absolutely nobody knows what's in. They're thousands of pages. Nobody can read them. And they add trillions of dollars to the deficit. We have been adding over $1 trillion to the deficit for so long in our spending bills. So long. And it's because nobody can read them, and they pass them at the last minute to avoid a government shutdown. It's a big game they play. But essentially, the president, according to this article by Elon and Vivek themselves in the Wall Street Journal, Donald Trump could have the ability to veto or to prevent that spending. On top of that, DOGE will help end federal overspending by taking aim at the $500 billion plus in annual federal expenditures that are unauthorized by Congress or are being used in ways that Congress did not intend. From $500 million a year to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, $1.5 billion for grants to international organizations, progressive groups like Planned Parenthood. All right, so $500 billion. Another example they cite: the Pentagon failing their audit with more than $800 billion being spent. Okay. And they're talking about the idea that DOGE, as you can see, our top goal for DOGE is to eliminate the need for its existence by July 4th, 2026. The expiration date we've set. There's no better birthday gift to our nation on its 250th anniversary than to deliver a federal government that would make our founders proud. So that would be amazing, wouldn't it? It's a pretty good birthday gift, if you ask me, 250 years to our country. But ultimately, the takeaway here is this: Elon and Vivek are not messing around. This is the man who's sending people to Mars, potentially. This is the man who virtually created the first effective and usable and successful electric car in a world where that was nearly impossible with a bunch of failures. You could go down the list of failed cars that tried to do that. But they're not messing around. And this will affect your life. This will affect the price of food. This will affect the affordability of homes. This will affect your ability to save money and to build wealth generationally for your family. This department could be a real turning point for this country. And I've seen even Democrats have come out and supported this idea that may not ideologically agree with some of the conservative points of Elon and Vivek, but they are open to seeing the potential of this department because it should be a bipartisan issue. I've talked about this for so long. The U.S. spending has gotten so out of control that I don't understand how it's not more bipartisan. This will single-handedly bring our country to its knees. And so I'm excited about this. I'm excited to see what this does and how this affects the future of this nation. And there's so many different things happening right now with the president, the incoming president, with his appointees. We got to hope we don't stumble into World War III with Russia just today using an intercontinental ballistic missile in Ukraine. All right. A lot of things happening. But if we can get to January 20th, I think we have a pretty good shot at turning this around and saving this country and saving this republic, which is what we try to do on the show. So if you guys enjoyed the show today, if you took something from it, please leave a like. Let us know what you think down below in the comment section. Check out our other content at Grab Your Gear, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Check us out. And with all that being said, I will see you all on the next show Friday, tomorrow, with a special guest, Mark Rogers. Take care.